24 hours. 1,440 minutes. One question. Have you achieved your goals? Are you living the life your heart beats faster for? Stand up. Write your story. If it were easy, it's not you driving it. It's in your hands. Get out of your comfort zone. Success is more than luck. It's the idea, the pioneer, the trailblazer, the inspiration. The CEO DNA. The entrepreneurial DNA that lies dormant in each and every one of us.
Welcome to the CEO DNA podcast. And this is all to make founders and entrepreneurs even more better, because we want to share really insights from the practical world to the practical world to really build great businesses. Because at the end of the day, we all know that real businesses actually change the world to be a better place. So we talk about better healthcare solutions, better energy solutions, or just creating jobs. And the person I'm talking today with, I'm super happy that we can do the interview finally. He actually was a college dropout and now has so many companies around the world, travels around the world. He spends at one time more money on advertising online as Coca-Cola. And also a crazy thing is he was actually at one point the most researched person in this world on Google. So welcome, Tai Lopez.
Yeah, I've had that for. You don't want to be the most searched person on Google.
It has good and bad points, right?
Good. It's okay have it for a day or a week, and,
yes.
And that's.
So we talk about CEO DNA. So what is a good DNA, good capabilities of a CEO for you?
So look, a CEO. One of the things that I tell people is you can't delegate what you don't know. So the best CEOs have deep domain expertise in a lot of stuff.
Right.
The most dangerous thing you can do as a CEO is have the mindset that you hear people saying where you're like, hey, whatever I'm not good at, I just hire somebody else to do it. Well, you have to manage stuff. So if you know nothing about accounting and you hire a CFO, you're not going to hire a good CFO and they're not going to do a good job. So a good CEO, CEO is an underrated title. If you look at the top, Elon Musk is still the CEO of his companies. Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter for a while. So you got to be somebody who's a learning machine, because you're going to have to learn a lot of stuff.
Right. How do you select your CEOs? Because you do a lot of investments in different companies.
I don't let anyone else be the CEO. Presidents. You should really, it's a myth. There's not much evidence that you should make somebody else the CEO. One of my mentors is a guy named Tillman Fertitta. He's on the Forbes list. He's worth $9 billion. He owns the Houston Rockets basketball team, Golden Nugget Hotel in Vegas, and he's the only CEO, but he owns something like 600 different businesses. Restaurants is one of his big things, 600 locations. He has COOs underneath him, chief operating officers. So for me, I have a subsidiary structure, so one CEO. Then each subsidiary brand gets a president. But I think it's important. It's hard. Like I said, Warren Buffett's still the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. Now he has, people running CEOs, so he has sub-CEOs. But if you're trying to hire leaders, here's the thing that people don't want to talk about. In general, people don't want to go work for somebody dumber or less skilled than they are. So, there's a myth, you always hire people way smarter than you. Well, yeah, maybe smarter at one thing, but trust me, Mark Zuckerberg was the CEO till he was a billionaire, and he was the smartest person there.
Right.
Bill Gates was the CEO until he was a multi-billionaire, and he was probably the sharpest guy there. Paul Allen, Steve Ballmer. I know Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer says Bill Gates smart. You may not. My mom hates Bill Gates. She says he's the Antichrist, but she doesn't say he's dumb. So, I think you're going to have to get really good if you want to bring good people around you. It's not just a hiring conversation. Humans are built to be able to read how intelligent their coworkers are. So if you're a CEO and you're not committed to becoming the sharpest person in your industry, you're not going to attract really sharp people.
Right.
Like attracts like.
So would you say that a founder is also a good CEO?
Well, here's the problem. There are CEOs that weren't founders and founders that never became CEOs, but it's more rare than you think.
Right.
In general, let's look at the top 10 wealthiest people in the world. You know, number one is Zuckerberg recently, Elon Musk, Bezos, Buffett, Larry Ellison, the Google guys, Bernard Arnault. Most of these people stay the boss of their company at least until they're worth $1 billion. Okay? So if you're a founder and you bring in an outside CEO, you own let's say you own 95% of the shares and you give the CEO 5%. Well, beware of perverse incentive because that CEO doesn't wake up in the middle of the night and think about the business because it's a small percentage of his wealth, where if you're the founder, it's 100% of your wealth. So I think you have to be really careful with delegation. It's kind of like delegating your kids. You have kids, right?
Yes, yeah. 1, 2,
Would you
3 -year-old.
delegate 100% of their upbringing to
For
other
sure
people?
not, yeah.
Right, because you have, as a man, you have 50% of the DNA of your kids. It's almost like you have 50% of the stock, and your
Right.
wife, 50% of the stock. So if you hire a nanny and you just say, we'll be back in a year,
Right.
well, the nanny's 0%
Yeah.
related to your kids, 0% of the stock,
Yeah.
the shares. So I think you have to follow the shares and the ownership, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And so you said it's important for a CEO to really done the job before, right? But also nowadays, I mean, technology is exponential growing, right? So to also understand the new technology, to implement it, to test, and you didn't like, yeah, I mean, you've been a pioneer. You had first time online marketing with Facebook, first time grow a personal brand. How do you see the trends coming? How do you feel that? Also with AI, I know so much, you know, you were the guy telling me you should talk to your phone in AI, you know, so now I have I'm driving with my car for 2 hours and I only talk to my phone.
Exactly. Yeah, I think AI, I mean, I saw Elon said the smartest human by the end of this year will be AI. It'll be smarter than any one human.
Wow.
And in 2 or 3 years, it'll be smarter than all humans combined. I'm not sure. We'll see how that plays out. It's possible. But you, for sure, will be replacing your customer support, 80% of it with AI. You'll be replacing a lot of your monitoring of your social media and advertisements, marketing with AI. You'll be doing a lot of your sales, your openings with AI.
Okay, so AI is very important, absolutely. But so how do you see those trends? Why did you say I was the first one now investing in Facebook advertisement for like super cheap clicks on Google?
I was one of the first people on Google AdWords in 2001, 2002. I was in kind of the Facebook beta program, was like 2007, 8, 9.
Yes.
YouTube, I wasn't the first, but I was very early in YouTube ads. I mean, one thing is network a lot. Almost everything I've learned to catch a trend early was either in a book or at a networking dinner. So always be networking, always be reading. Elon Musk, his sister, just wrote an article that he reads 2 books a day. Warren Buffett says when he was young, he could read 800 pages a day. Now he can only read 500.
Right.
You know.
So how many books are you reading per year?
Well, I try to read 1 a day.
Really?
It depends on the book. There'll be books that are very easy to read. A lot of the modern New York Times bestseller books, you can read them in a day because you can skip half the chapters. But I'm also reading classic books that you won't be able to read in 1 day. Like,
but how do you do it? Do you like learn to read fast? Or
fast and audio.
Ah, okay.
Audio is good too. If you set a book on 2 hours, double speed, a lot of books are 8 to 12 hours on an app.
True.
And so you can get through them in 1 to 2 days. When you're at the gym, when you're driving, I tell people, don't listen to so much music. Play music. Most of the benefit in music is you playing it. Now, there is some benefit of listening. You know, there's science that Baroque music, Brahms, German, you're German, so, you know, is healthy, lowers your blood pressure and all that. But most of the benefit of music in terms of making you smarter, more creative, is actually playing it. So people are listening to too much music. The average person is listening to like 2 to 4 hours a day of music.
So what kind of books would you recommend now for management, business?
Peter Drucker's one of the best, old school. I have a tailopez.com/books. I have my 100 books you should read in order from 1 to 100 of what I think. Peter Drucker, I have his book number 1 on tailopez.com/books. It's Managing Oneself. Jim Collins is kind of the modern day Peter Drucker. Jim Collins wrote a book, Good to Great, Built to Last, several books like that. There's a guy on Catching Trends named Michael Johnson. He wrote Where Good Ideas Come From.
Yes.
That's a great book. Let me look it up. I think it's Michael Johnson. Watch, I'll use ChatGPT. Who wrote Where Good Ideas Come From? Isn't it Michael Johnson?
So now you know where I learned how to use ChatGPT, because when
Google is under attack.
When you hang out with Tai, it's a lot of ChatGPT.
Sorry, Stephen Johnson.
Stephen Johnson. Okay,
Thank you, ChatGPT.
Good. So
you made me 20 IQ points higher.
So we will add this link. Thank you for sharing that. And then there's another life hack, what I also learned from you, the 30% rule.
Yes.
To have your environment. Can you maybe explain that?
Yeah, I did a TEDx talk in 2014 called The Law of 33%. It's why I read a book a day, but it's also about structuring your life. So 33% of your day you spend with people less skilled than you. That's usually your employees. Then 33% of your day, your year, you need to be around people that are at the same level as you. So if you're an entrepreneur, that's your entrepreneurial friends, you know? And then 33% of your day, you need to spend, this is the hardest part, people who are 20 years ahead of you, where you want to be in 20 years. And that's the one you have to work on, because
how do
those
you
people don't want to hang out with you.
How do you come up with the 20 years?
Well, where do you want to be in 20 years? What do you want your net worth to be in 20 years?
Yes, so let's put it 10 digit, yeah.
So just pick a number. What's the number?
So over a billion would be nice.
Okay, then right now you got to be hanging out with people that are worth more than a billion right now.
Nice, okay, good.
So it's simple, you know, and it doesn't always have to be on money. Somebody wants to have a happy family and this, and then you got to be around somebody who already has that. Because the human brain at a DNA level is built to mimic.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you learn language. You mimic.
Yes.
You don't just wake up speaking English or Chinese. You are absorbing people around you. You don't learn social skills on your own. You learn them by mimicking how far. Okay, different cultures stand different distances apart.
Right.
So you mimic. So everything you want in a life, you need to mimic it. If you want to become a great basketball player, study LeBron James, you know. If you want to become a great entrepreneur, follow the people on the Forbes list. Try to mimic what they do, how they do it. But not just the skills, but also the soft skills. How do they talk? Their vocabulary. What's their habits? Like I said, Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day. You want to be the best investor? He's the best statistically at scale. Him and Charlie Munger are the best investors in the last 50 years. They did like 18% return. And if you look at the risk-adjusted return, nobody's gotten even close to that. Hedge funds take a lot more risk, and most of them don't do more than 10%.
Yeah,
you know?
So true. But I mean, you also invested a lot in dinners with also billionaires, for example, to spend time with them. And actually, now you even have some of the friends. Mark Cuban, for example, is a friend of
Steve Ballmer.
Yeah.
I paid him $250,000 to his charity. You can't pay them directly.
Yeah, right.
But I've been in business. You know, I've owned 3 companies with guys on the Forbes list. And so I also have learned from I bought bodybuilding.com with a guy that's on the Forbes list. We owned it 50-50. You know, you learn a lot of stuff with being in business, even more than you'll learn at a dinner. But that took me many years to be able to be in business with these type people. But a book is simple. You can read Made in America by Sam Walton. That'll teach you more about e-com than anything else you could ever read. He built Walmart.
Yeah, but how did it all start? So basically, your childhood, if I may say, was a bit rough.
Right.
You had some,
my dad was in prison when I was born, so that's why I was born in Los Angeles. I would have been born in New York, but he got put on an island called Terminal Island off Los Angeles. So I was born in LA, and I had a single mom. What really changed my life is after I graduated high school, living in a mobile home, kind of like a poor little, movable house. And what changed my life the most was basically I found 5 millionaire mentors. So that showed me how to make my first million. Since then I tried to find 5 billionaire mentors. That's the next level. But mimic, and not just money. I lived with the Amish for 2.5 years.
Wow.
To try to learn how to live a balanced life. I have a farm that I have now, so I try to not just be focused on money, because there's always somebody richer than you. So no matter how much you make,
True.
you can become the richest person in the world. You're on the Forbes list. Then you realize Putin has $1 trillion. You're not rich if you don't own an army.
Or country, yeah.
Napoleon used to say, you're not rich unless you have legions.
Yeah.
You got to have legions. And Putin basically controls Russia, which is definitely, let's say Russia's a $2 to $10 trillion, economy if you count raw resources. So I don't like to just optimize for wealth. And
No, but very interesting. So basically, yes, we talked about the childhood. Then you had the college where you also dropped out to do self-development. And what was the turning point here when you did self-development, and when did it really exponential grow?
Yeah, I remember. Well, so before I started to make money, around 2001, I started making $8,000 a month on autopilot, which was so much money to me.
Maybe you tell us how did you do that with life
So
insurance?
I bought a course by Corey Rudel. There was an ad. I was just clicking through. I saved up enough money to have a laptop, and I was working a sales job, cold calling leads. The guy, Mike Steinbach, he was my second mentor. He gave me a office that was a closet. He said, I'll give you an office. I thought I was going to get a nice office. He moved some filing cabinets around. I remember I had a chair with a desk in a closet, and if I tried to lean back, it was like an airplane seat. It would only go back because there was a wall. So I was cold calling leads, and I was trying to figure out, I realized one thing I knew, luckily, was you got to work. You can't outwork all your problems. You have to outthink them. Right. Tools. So I was just Googling, it's 2001, right after 9/11. I remember it was 2001. And I was working for GE Capital, but in their sales, like selling insurance, mutual funds. And I saw an ad, and it said, it was a guy on the beach with his shoes off. I have my shoes off here because you're not allowed to wear shoes in this castle we're at. And it said, how I made $28,000 laying on the beach yesterday. And I was like, this is probably a get-rich-quick scheme, but I was like, that's what I need to get rich quick. I wasn't skeptical. I was like, that sounds great. I clicked it, and it was this landing page before there was video landing pages. And it was Corey Rudel, and he said, buy my system. And it was like $100. With upsells, it was $300. That's all the money I had in my bank account. I remember paying, I was like, credit card, all the money I had. And a week later, it wasn't an online course. It came in a box.
Wow.
And it was a 3-ring binder, kind of like a textbook. And I opened it up. I don't remember anything except one thing. It said there's a new thing called Google AdWords to advertise. So I said, let me try it. And I started buying 20-cent clicks. And I generated my own leads, and I started closing the leads because I had a lead flow. The CEO of GE Financial for Atlanta, a guy named John McGilchrist. I like to find that guy. I haven't heard from him in years. He called me and said, Tai, how did you go to one of our top sales reps? And I didn't want to tell him that I was doing Google ads. Because I thought maybe you weren't allowed to do it.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm not going to tell this dude. So I just said, I didn't lie. I just didn't tell him the whole truth. I just said, I didn't tell him the whole story. I just said, I'm generating my own leads. I figured out a way. And he's like, is this legal? I'm like, yeah, which it was. It was Google ads. And so I never looked back. That was around 2001, 2002, $8,000 a month. And, before that, I was struggling to make $0. I mean, it was tough. Then I added another stream of income. I bought my first business. I did an M&A transaction, but I did it cashless. In 2003, 2004, I bought a nightlife business in Raleigh, North Carolina, nightclubs. And so then I had 2 streams of income. That was when I was like, wait a sec, this is the good life. By then I was making $10,000 to $20,000 a month. And then this other business doubled that.
Right.
So all of a sudden I was making $40,000 a month in 2003, 2004 was like more than $100,000 a month today in buying power. That was, then I never stopped. I was like, let me slowly add another stream of income. And I kept doing that. And I sold those first 2 businesses, the financial planning business. It's still around in North Carolina. It's called Legacy Life Group, LLG. And then I sold the nightlife business to my best friend, and I moved to California to try to I was a big fish in a small pond in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was like, I'm gonna go to a bigger pond. Los Angeles is about the biggest. Southern California is basically the biggest pond in the world. People don't realize Manhattan and Southern California are $1.5 trillion economies. In fact, if California was its own country, it'd be like the 6th biggest country in the world by economics. So Los Angeles would be like number 14 or 15 in the world. There's only 15 countries bigger than that. So I don't know if that's a good strategy. In hindsight, I think it's okay to be I think the best is to be a big fish in a medium pond. You know, I built small businesses like in Raleigh. Those were, you know, through $1 million or whatever a year. Small, I did medium size, and I've done businesses, you know, I've done over 500 million in 1 year in revenue with my businesses. Looking back at all that experience, I think it's best to be a big fish in a medium pond.
Yeah, could be. So it was interesting that you said, okay, then you bought very cheap Google ads. I think one word was, what was life insurance?
Life insurance you could buy for 20 cents.
And now it's like $30 maybe,
oh,
25.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Inflation is, inflation is
So
insane.
you could buy those leads and then sell them insurance. Quite interesting. Then you moved to California, you were saying.
Yes.
There was one special event in your life where lots of people could see you on the screen. It was called In My Garage.
Yeah,
You
here
did
in my
the video.
garage.
Here.
I made a video. I started to go viral. I was on a TV show in 2007 called Millionaire Matchmaker. That went crazy viral. It was
So you was the bachelor or?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
This was like 2000, I think it came out in either 2007, 2008. It's called Millionaire Matchmaker. There was a matchmaker. You had to verify you were a millionaire. It was on Bravo. It was almost the most watched TV show.
Did you find a woman or not?
No, I didn't really like the choices that I had. Although one of them was nice, but I was on that show and that went crazy viral. I think my episode was the #2 for like 3 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I tasted a little bit of virality, but I didn't know how to monetize it into dollars. I didn't have, at that point, I wasn't thinking that way. I should have been, but I wasn't, you know?
Yeah, but then you had one time the idea to make like a really viral video. And how did it end up that it turned out to be as it turned out? Was it fully planned and every sequence scheduled?
Well, so in 2014, I shot a video. 2015, this is January 2015. It was called Here in My Garage. It's almost the most watched commercial in internet history. It's been seen. I had a few different variations.
We talk about like hundreds
million,
of 400 millions of hundreds of million views.
Yeah,
yes.
More. It's a crazy number. Minutes watched. It's billion minutes or something. So I had been doing marketing and copywriting since 2001.
Right.
So there's no overnight success. Overnight success took me a decade. So it was somewhat planned. My best marketing is half planned, half not planned. If you're too planned in your marketing, it comes off as very formal, not authentic. And if it's so totally improvised is bad because it usually doesn't follow a good structure, and totally formal isn't good. So your best ads almost always, I've got an ad running right now that's doing very well, very well. And it's half planned, half not planned.
Yeah, but you took your phone and just said, okay, instead of like a professional video expert, you said, no, I just do it by my phone.
Yep.
What was the two things where you said, okay, I know there were lots of elements in it because we talked about it once, but what was the two things that you said, okay, those really hit the jackpot? That was
good opening hook. You have 5 seconds to hook people's attention.
Your Lamborghini at this time?
But it was more than that. It was multiple cognitive, I call them triggers. So you have to trigger, if you want to make money with marketing, you have to trigger people's emotions. Humans aren't logical. So it was multiple triggers. One was this kind of, they call it breaking the fourth wall. Like it was like just not a formal camera. It was just me holding an iPhone. Number 2, it was simple to understand. That's called availability trigger. Make sure things are easily available to the brain. I didn't use big words. I didn't say, I'm here to teach multi-platform synergistic business models. I just said, I'm here in my garage. I used a brand name, Lamborghini and Hollywood Hills. Everybody knows those two. And that's where I was living. And then it was a surprise because instead of me talking about a car, I said, what I like more than material things. And I turned and I said, is knowledge and books. I had just put like 200 books in my garage because I ran out of room in my house. And so by that mental structure was so many different triggers, people couldn't resist watching it. And once they watch the first 5 to 10 seconds, I have them hooked like a fish. And once the hook's in, then it was a 3-minute and 45-second video. And by the time they watched that whole 3:45, they clicked and it went to a 45-minute video presentation. And it just kept people, it's called hypnosis. You need to hypnotize people. Good marketing, you want to look away, but you can't. And that video had a lot of hypnosis triggers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, over 400 million people actually saw it. Quite fascinating. And then you were actually all over. And I know friends who already were in your masterminds at this time in your house in California. And they tell me, oh, Tai had all over iPhones hanging. And he said whenever he posted something and you did videos. So you really went viral then, right?
Yeah, I have like 14 phones. So I can go live on different platforms. When I just went to Brazil. When I land there, customs is like, why do you have 14 phones? I have to go through customs, fill out a... They think I'm there to sell phones. I'm like, trust me, I don't want to sell these phones. These are my damn phones. No, it takes me 2 hours to get through the Brazilian customs every time.
So you were really kind of like all over.
Yeah.
And then after a while, and you also invested and co-invested in different companies, you became shareholder. But then online-wise, it became quite quiet for a while.
Yeah, I took
a couple.
Was that? Being a big social media influencer, I needed a break.
Everybody know you, like you go to
people,
USA.
I had fans go to prison, breaking into my house. I had security with a machine gun, 2 German Shepherds for years. I had people breaking my house all the time. I had people outside my house every day, all day. Yeah, I had a guy end up going to prison, broke in, figured even when he got past the guard dogs, which is crazy.
Oh wow, that's gives them some good food.
The only thing my guard dogs ever attacked that was successful was the FedEx man.
Oh no!
And somebody left the door. No, luckily he didn't sue me. Somebody left the gate open. There was a little side gate, and he just it said "Do not come in, dogs." But he just walked in, and he turned these 2 German Shepherds I flew them in. They were German. They came straight at him, and they spoke German. Oh, really? So you couldn't get them off you with English words.
Yeah.
Luckily, we caught them when they were hanging on his arm. Yeah, we came flying. We heard them. Ah! So anyway, at some point, I was like, let me minimize my brand. I went from posting 50 times a day to Instagram to posting once a week or once a month. So I took a couple of years off, and now I'm back. Sometimes you need to get re-energized. And
I think that's also what you do today very well. You tell me about your farm in Texas. You go sometimes to Norway. Yeah. So that's really where you kind of load your batteries again, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know what's your life purpose. For me, I have 14 business partners in my life. I'm friends with all 14 of them. One of my business partners, he only cares about money. He's very honest. He's like, Tai, I don't care about family. I don't care about having kids. He doesn't even care about spending the money. He wants the title of richest man in the world. That's his goal, which is fine. I have my own set of goals, so you got to make sure. One of my mentors, Joel Salatin, used to say the worst thing in life is to grow old and realize you got good at the wrong thing.
Right.
And so a lot of people take other people's goals. So at some point I realized, wait a sec, Tai, you never wanted to be the richest man in the world. You want to be rich, but not the richest. And I was just working for a goal that I didn't even really want.
Understood. So what is it today?
I think, the beautiful life.
Yes. Right.
Beautiful life to me that's the one goal. Under that is health, wealth, love, happiness. Those are the 4 components. But I never want I don't want my health to go down and my wealth go up, because then it's destroying beauty. I don't want my social life, love, friends, family, romance to go down as I work on wealth. And I don't want my happiness to plummet. But I also don't want to be just trying to be happy without having health and wealth. You need, all of them. So, but I only have one goal, and that's if I can keep them all in balance, health, wealth. So you got to breathe, in my worldview, as you make more wealth, the health, love, and happiness have to rise. And there was a time in my life where wealth was going up, but happiness was going down.
Yeah,
more money, more problems.
I fully understand that, especially when I talk to many CEOs who are very successful as well. They always have issues by keeping it in balance. right? So whether
Yes.
they have extremely success in business, but they're going through the forced divorce, so I think it's important for a CEO, also especially for the younger ones, to understand it needs to be balanced, right? So what makes a success?
Well, that's a good question. I think when it comes to making money, I think 4 things you find if you look at the statistics, ultra wealthy people have extreme high IQ. Okay. They're born with that. That's pretty much, you have to be born with high IQ. Can't make yourself Einstein. Number 2, they have extreme high levels of energy, physical energy. They don't get tired. They can work a long time on something. That's called hypomania. There's a good book called The Hypomanic Edge on this. Then the third thing, and the third and fourth kind of go together. Risk and greed. To be in the Forbes list, one thing I disagree, don't be listening to ultra wealthy people that tell you they don't care about money. They love money. Ain't nobody, it's like muscles. If you met a big bodybuilder and he said to you, "Oh, I'm not doing it for the muscles. I just like to go to the gym and do this all day." Bullshit. Come on, let's have a real talk. So, but also risk takers. Napoleon was the richest man in modern history, worth at least multi-trillions. He controlled Europe at one point, even including Russia. And he, after he lost everything, he lost at Waterloo. There's a famous book about his boat trip where he was exiled in off Africa. And he was gambling. He started with like $2, okay? He built it up to 100,000. He gambled it all on one hand and lost it all. So people who really succeed, and that's called the winner's paradox. We only see the winners at the top of it. There's a whole graveyard of people just as smart, just as ambitious and energetic, but they lost the coin flip of risk. So there's always luck. You got to be lucky. So there's luck meets skill.
True, but sometimes luck is also hard work, as we
For sure,
can
but
agree.
luck meets skill because you could have been born handicapped. You could have been born in North Korea. There's a lot of Mr. Beast potential genius people that were born in a place where you have no chance. So always stay humble enough to know that some of your success is due to yourself, but not all of it.
100%. Let's talk a little bit also about the future. So what are your future plans? What are you planning now to?
Well, now I like my personal brand being an accelerator and an incubator for lots of brands. So I like to have a holding company structure. I think it's the best way. That's what Warren Buffett does. So I'm the CEO of my my Tai Lopez Brands holding company. I bought 3 companies this year, bought 2 clothing lines, bought a hospitality business offshore in Europe, Scandinavia, bought 2 clothing lines out of England, out of the UK. I'm down in Brazil opening. So I like to be global because I like to travel, but I'll continue to buy. I do joint ventures with top entrepreneurs. We'll build a new company 50-50. They'll operate it. I'll use my brand and my expertise to help. So I love that. I really like Warren. I think Warren Buffett is my favorite entrepreneur, just personal preference. He took the least risk and made the most money, and he's just, everybody respects Buffett.
You met him in person?
I've never met Buffett. Okay. He's a hard guy to meet. There's a dinner, a lunch, you can do an auction. A few years ago, it was $3 million was the highest anyone ever. Now,
just for lunch.
I mean, he's going to die soon.
Yeah, true.
Charlie Munger, I mean, I hope he doesn't, but he's getting up there. I was supposed to meet Charlie Munger years ago, and I was out of town, Los Angeles. So my COO, actually my president she went and met him. So I wish I had met Munger before he died, but I studied him a lot,
Yeah, for sure. Last point, what I think is so fascinating when whoever spends time with you, a lot about understanding human psychology extremely well.
Yeah.
When did that start? Or is it just an inner knowledge, know-how you want to have? Is it like an inner desire you really want to know? Because you asked me directly to do a personality test, I remember when we met.
Yes. I think I've tested, as one human, I've tested Dr. Buss. Is like, Tai, you may have tested the most humans as an individual. There's bigger companies that have done it, but I've analyzed, we're getting close to 1 million people. I've looked through data, and I don't look at the individual, I look at the group data. But I think if you want to be wealthy and you want to be successful, do a reverse engineer your brain. What would you teach your kid, your child? Let's say they're 2 years old. If you could give them one main skill that would help them get the beautiful life, health, wealth, love. What's the one thing that would get you all four? It's only psychology. It's not going to school for business. It's not going to school for accounting, engineering, medicine, none of those. Richest man in the world last month was Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. He's a dropout, but what did he go to Harvard for? Psychology. What was Steve Jobs? Psychologist. What is Elon Musk? He's an engineer, but he's also a puppet master. So if you know your own psychology, you can fix your health, because most of physical health is disciplining yourself to go to the gym and eat right. So that's psychology. Wealth, you have to convince other people to buy your products and not your competitors. Psychology. Love, friends, family, romance, social skills is all psychology. And happiness, once again, is understanding your own psychology and what triggers you to feel happier. So I can't think of one skill that's more valuable than psychology. If I learned medicine, then I'd be great at health, but we all know doctors are not necessarily good at the other three. So the master of psychology is the master of all.
Nice, very interesting. Last but not least, happiness. That's also such an important topic, also for entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders. To kind of manage everything. What is your secret source of that? Do you have one?
Well, I think for happiness, I break happiness. So I have this thing called, the 484 frameworks. This is going to be my life's work. So I built the 67 steps in 2014. It was kind of the first structured breakdown in self-development that was very in-depth, 67 steps. But I've expanded it now, so you have the one purpose. You can only have one purpose on earth. Mine is to find the beautiful life. Then I break that into 4. Health, the 4 pillars, wealth, love, happiness. Then I break the 4 pillars into 3 subsections. That's the 12 foundations. Anyway, I keep breaking it into 3 until you're left with 484 frameworks, 121 principles of health, 121 principles of wealth, 121 principles of love, 121 principles of happiness. So it's a complicated question, but I'll give you my short answer. To be happy, you have to understand modern genetics, which is very new. We only decoded the DNA in the 1970s approximately. Okay, so what have we learned? It's one of my best friends, Dr. Herman Garcia Fresco. He's a molecular neuroscience. He's one of the top PhDs in the world at understanding genetics and your brain. All happiness is obviously in the brain. So realize, for example, it's a mixture that's different for people. For example, to be happy, I need to spend at least 30-40% of my year on my farm. Big cities, I've lived in huge cities. Like I lived in Manhattan, at almost the most baller mansion in Manhattan for a year. I hated that year. I couldn't figure out why I didn't like it. I was on the 64th floor of Millionaire Row in a 9,000 square foot, so 900 square meter penthouse. There's only 4 like that in all of Manhattan. But I did not like that year of my life. I realized genetically, I need more outdoors than the average person. So I always liked Los Angeles more than New York because Los Angeles has much more nature. Hollywood Hills, Beverly Hills, there's a lot of trees. Manhattan, Millionaire Row, there's like 1 tree. I mean, there's Central Park, but the street is just asphalt. So, but I have another friend. He lived in San Francisco in the middle of downtown. Never bothered him. So to be happy, know your specific DNA code. I guarantee you in 10 years, there'll be a company, maybe I'll own it, that you'll swipe your mouth, get your DNA, and it'll come back and say, here's your unique formula for happiness. You need to spend this much time alone, this much time in a social setting, this much time reading, you need this much nature. I think it's so unfortunately, we're from this 100 years from now, people are going to think we're primitive.
For sure, yeah.
Because also, that's how you're going to get married. There's going to be a swab, and it'll be like, here's the 100 women that are perfect matches for you.
Yeah.
Now we have to do all this goofy stuff like Tinder, dates. Now to find happiness, we have to spend 10 years of our life being unhappy to figure out what we want. So I have high hopes. As long as humans survive for the next 50 years through all the craziness on Earth, we have a chance of being able to actually solve the problem of happiness. And by the way, some people will always have a hard time being happy because they inherit a lot of depressed genes. So actually, a more advanced company would be able to genetically fix, or not fix, but alter people who have a lot of depression in their genetics. The problem with that is some of the most brilliant people, like bipolar, this cluster of genes that makes people bipolar is very close to the cluster that makes you a genius.
Yes.
So if we decode all of humans to be very happy, we'll lose Nietzsche. We'll lose some of the great thinkers of all time. We'll lose Elon Musk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very complicated question.
All right,
Yeah.
guys, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. If you want more, please subscribe and share this podcast. So many hacks, so many interesting insights. Thank you so much.
And I've got a good, if you go to Tai Lopez, my Instagram, and DM me the word books, it just Instagram my @Tai Lopez, I'll send you my newest list of books that I'm reading.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tai, for joining today.
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you, really. Amazing.
Don't wait for your future. Create it. The countdown is on. What are you waiting for? With smart technology, intelligent automation, future-proof processes, and ease of use. Grow as a team. Grow with your community. Create space for your potential. With Kloep Card, you can make your digital business easier, faster, and simply better.